On today's show, we're talking about a buying guide for Apple Scilicon, we're talking about bezel colour on MacBook Pros, and a lot more, so stay tuned. I'm iCave David. On today's show, we are doing purely your questions. This is mainly because, as usual, there's not a great deal of news going on right now, but it's always good, I think, to just kind of deep dive into what you guys are interested in and answer your questions. So I wanted to give you a quick overview as well of what's going on with the channel. So the channel has now been around for about 11 months, which is not a huge amount of time, but I'm trying to make the most interactive Apple channel on YouTube. That's basically always been my aim. I want to grow it, but I also want to grow it in a way that you guys care about. So just for a little bit of context now, the channel is just approaching 1.25 million views. The first Apple Daily, I would like to say, was premiered on the 15th of August. So that's kind of the daily show that we do right now. Before that, I mean, there's a handful of videos on there from before, which is basically me playing COD Mobile on the iPad. So that's kind of where the channel started. We were talking about more iPad stuff than general Mac stuff, but obviously Mac is what this channel has become about. Although we're Apple in general, we also kind of really focus on the Mac a lot more than anything else. But I just wanted to thank you guys as a community. 1.25 million views on the channel. I don't think there's been any comments that I haven't replied to. That has always been the aim for me, and admittedly at the moment the views are down a little bit because no news, but I really appreciate you guys. I just want to make that clear, and if you want to help grow this channel at all, a share of one of our videos would really make me happy. So if you don't mind, that would be awesome. And also, obviously, if you're here without subscribing, do that bit as well. But let's get straight into your questions. First up, Jon Copeland asks, I'm not sure on a yearly update on the Mac side. I think it will be more like every 18 months. I think it's fine to update a phone every 12 months as it's a disposable product. It's also not only the chip that's being updated, but usually new features, aka camera, video, Lidar, for the need to keep up with the competition, i.e. Galaxy. With the Mac side of things, there's always been these features that will come to the Mac and the Apple Scilicon. They are way ahead of the competition already, so no need to update every 12 months and less risk of annoying people when their spanking new Mac is outdated within a year. Your thoughts? So, I'm just going to challenge you a little bit on the typical refresh rates. So, for the MacBook Air, for example, the typical days between releases is 398, so only just over a year. So, since the last release was 244 days, then before that was 237 days since March 2020, 253 days since July 2019, 252 days since October 2018. So I don't think that there's an issue with Apple releasing Macs annually. That shouldn't be a problem at all. Now, my other issue with going to 18-monthly release cycle rather than annually is that the chips are now going to be based on Apple's own silicon, which is basically what goes into the iPhones already. So they're already creating the new cores every year for the A14, A15, A16. So it makes no sense for them to go, well, we'll go an 18-month release cycle for the Macs. So then they'd be doing like the A14 when it's just come out, like with the M1, and then they'd be doing the A15 6 months after it had come out, and then they'd skip A16 and go to A17. Like, it's a really odd cycle if you do that. So that's my reason for thinking that if they're going to do it and they're going to do it on their own chips, they're going to do it on an annual release cycle because it just makes much more sense. So I think we'd have a staggered release cycle, so you'll have A-series chips coming out with the iPhones, then 6 months later we're probably going to be getting the M-series chips, which is going to be around about March time, which is what we're expecting to happen with the M2, and then about 6 months after that we'll get the M2X, which would be the M2 that's got more cores, and then following that, 6 months later, we get the M3. Does that make sense to you? So the M1X series chips will come a year after the core silicon. Once it's all been perfected and they know that everything's going to be solid, then they can put it into the Pro systems and they know that all the support's going to be there already in terms of the software. Hopefully that makes sense. Next up, Stephen Dale asks, I'm considering getting the Mac Mini M1 soon. Is this still a good idea? I currently use the iMac Retina 5K 27-inch 2019 model, but this is going back at the end of its lease. I have a MacBook Pro 2014 as a laptop, so this would be my desktop replacement. What's your view? Okay, this is a great question. I would have probably said don't bother replacing a 2019 iMac at this point, just wait for the next one. But if that's got to go back as part of a lease, yes, a Mac Mini is a great idea at this point, and that's for a couple of reasons. So first of all, the Mac Mini just performs great. It's exactly what we run this whole channel on. It sits under there it is, right at the back, with stuff around it. Performance-wise, it's great. Price-wise, it's incredible. Pick it up refurbished, you'll probably save nearly $100 on it, and when you come to resell it, if that's what you want to do, you'll also probably find that you'll get basically what you paid for it back. I don't think it's going to depreciate pretty much at all in the time that it takes for the next version to come out. Even if you look online right now for an Intel Mac Mini, like a 2014, it's probably still around about $400, so I think it's a very safe buy. A. Hughes asks, I gave answers, as the M1X MacBook Pros are probably delayed until September or October at the earliest. I've decided to get a MacBook Air to tide me over in the meantime. Do you suggest I buy one and sell it when the M1X breaks cover, or is it possible to buy a decent second-hand one, in which case I'd keep it as a backup device? What do you advise? So this comes down to pretty much the same as I've just said to the previous question. They are a really good buy anyway at the moment. MacBook Air, you can get it for about $8.99, possibly even as low as $8.49 if you pick up the right times on Amazon, or check out the refurb store. I believe there's some in the States. I don't think they've had refurbished Apple Silicon here in the UK just yet. I mean, it's just a solid buy, and for the price that you're going to be looking at, I don't think it's going to go much lower than about $750 anyway, even if you're going used, and that probably wouldn't be one that's in a great condition at this point, if it's going to be dropping that low, because there's still delays on getting these brand new. So I would say pick one up regardless, and then just see how you feel. You might find that you really want to keep it when the M1X has come out, or you might think to yourself, well, actually, it doesn't really matter because these are going to not be in short supply at all, and if you do need to get one, you're going to be able to put your hands on one like next day regardless. So how much do you actually need a backup laptop at this point? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Evan Rogers asks, will the forthcoming MacBook Pros have white or black bezels? Okay, we don't know, but the assumption at this point, and I think I kind of agree with this assumption, is that the MacBook Airs will come with white bezels and the MacBook Pros will come with black bezels. I mean, this is all assumed. Maybe they won't have bezels. Maybe they'll have bezels made of air. Maybe they'll have some sort of, I don't know, Vanta black bezels, so they just completely disappear. We don't know any of this stuff at the minute, but my assumption would be that the Pros will get the black bezels, the consumer devices will get the white bezels, and everyone will be happy. Biabisk7 asks, I gave answers, what is your favourite ice cream flavour? So this, I guess, is kind of referring to when we've been doing pizza versus pasta just recently, but again, this is kind of fun, so we got to have a chat in the comments, so why not? Favourite ice cream flavour, I'm going to go with like salted caramel or banoffee. I'm not into like rich chocolate stuff. Some of the fruity stuff's good. I kind of have a soft spot for like bubblegum though. But let me know down in the comments, what is your favourite ice cream? Open it up to the floor. Dust S asks, I gave answers, what do you think of the chips for the upcoming MacBook Pros being on the same N5 as the M1, or N5P, which would give a little single core boost? Okay, so for this one, I think because it's going to be M1X, I think the process for the chips being the same design as the M1 is going to be the same process, and then when we get to M2 onwards, we'll get the N5+. Basically, it's an improvement to the 5nm process that they're using. It's not a kind of smaller node or anything like that, but it's a little bit more efficient. So that's my thoughts, but we just don't know until it happens. John Malkin, I gave answers, what price point would you get an Apple Silicon Mac Pro instead of a Mac Mini? Ooh, I do like it when we have like a tipping point kind of thing. For me, it would probably be like, because I don't have a huge budget at the minute because this channel is quite small, probably like $2,000 is probably as much as I could stretch to at the moment, but I do think that like the power that you get in a Mac Mini right now is just obscene comparatively to what we've had in the past, so I don't feel like I actually need to have a Mac Pro, but if they came down in price because of Apple Silicon and not having to pay Intel for the obscenely expensive Xeon chips, yeah, I think probably I could stretch to about $2,000. Travis Smith asks, I gave answers, will the 2021 MacBook Pro have a USB Type-A port? No, sorry. USB-A is just outdated. It's not a current it's not a current connector. It's not something that needs to be kept around. Just like floppy disk drives don't need to be kept around, just like SCSI doesn't need to be kept around, just like VGA ports don't need to be kept around. You might well have some hard drives that use a USB-A port. All you need to do is go on Amazon. The cables are like $2 that go from your drive to a USB-C port. You just throw away the old cable, you replace it with this. I'm not saying add dongles, I'm saying just update your cables to match the system that you've got. It makes all the sense in the world. Someone should put that on a t-shirt. Evan Rogers asks, iCave Answers, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing, add, delete, etc. about iOS, what would it be? That's a really tricky one, because I think iOS is pretty awesome right now. The only thing that I think would just shut up some of the Android fanboys is, and I'm not going to say 120 hertz, because we know that that's already kind of on the way in terms of hardware, and that's not about iOS, that's about hardware. I think the one thing that would be really good is the addition of theme packs that you can download from the App Store. Maybe they cost you 99p, maybe there's free ones, maybe there's premium ones out there. Maybe Louis Vuitton could launch one where you get all Louis Vuitton icons and a nice wallpaper. But I also think to myself, I know that there will be people that would do it, that replaces all their icons and their wallpaper and stuff. And I also know that there's going to be people out there that are like, well, I can change my icons anyway using shortcuts. And yeah, you can. But I think the convenience of being able to do it in a theme pack and being able to customize the look of your iOS a little bit more would probably be good. Alan B Unboxings and News asks, iCave Answers, will Apple ever launch an iPhone XRS? Not quite sure what that is. In different colours like jet black, jet gold, jet blue, and then he lists kind of all the colours that have ever existed, finishing with jet brown, which sounds more like a toilet accident. I'm going to assume by this that you mean glossy colours rather than being the matte finishes, and we've kind of gone to that anyway, with all of the backs being glass now, the sides being aluminium, but I would like to see glossy back with glossy stainless steel sides at some point. So I'm going to say I would love it, but I don't think they will. And James Apple asks, hey Dave, do you think the bigger iMac is going to be called the iMac Pro, or will it, like the iPhone, just be called it in name alone? Because Mark Gurman seems to be implying that it'll have an M1X or an M2X chip, which indicates to me that we'll be getting a bigger iMac, that most of the bells and whistles of a pro-level desktop machine and one that the YouTubers will be replacing their discontinued iMac Pro with. So, okay, this one, it's purely a name thing, because they're not going to be doing Mac Pro level chips in it, unless we end up getting to the point where they're actually going to put in dual M1Xs. I have a feeling that might be what they do. So I think they'll do an iMac, which will be around the 30 to 32 inch mark, 31.5 probably, and then they will probably also do eventually an iMac Pro, and that will have dual M1Xs or M2Xs or whatever it comes to at that point. So that would be kind of the lower end version of the Mac Pro in an iMac. That would make sense to me. I think they could probably do it in the same chassis they have right now, because you could probably separate those M2s a little bit airflow-wise. But that would be my thought, is that there will probably be an iMac that's bigger and an iMac Pro that potentially gets the nano textured glass, all those kind of options as well. So that's where I come down on it, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. That's going to be your $5,000 iMac though. And thank you everyone for submitting your questions. Please keep submitting them. Hashtag iCaveAnswers down in the comments. Also, if you see a news story that you think that we should cover, feel free to drop a link down in there with the news story. Also, do that on Twitter, because I think YouTube tends to be a bit funny with people dropping links into the comments, which is annoying. But yeah, feel free to do it, and if I see it, I will include it. If not, tweet me over at iCaveDave on Twitter. You can find me over there. And before we finish as well, the green flashes that were coming up over all the overlay stuff in the past couple of shows, I think it's a glitch between Final Cut Pro and Monterey, so I'm sorry about that. Don't think there's that much I can do about it until we get updates come through. So just not going to use overlay images at the minute, and if I do, then I'll probably export it from Final Cut, throw it into iMovie, add them in there. It's a bit of a ball ache, but it's what we have right now. Oh, and just to cover it, the Apple Tomorrow thing, changing to Orchard Digital. He's changed his mind, he's not doing it anymore, so just back to Apple Tomorrow as you were. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.